Hey everybody, I just want to take a moment and show you a demonstration of our live cash game Poker Coach based on ChatGPT. I've spent a few months developing this and it's awesome. I'm going to get right into it. So basically, we go to the Vinton Live Cash Poker Coach and we load it up. If you want to know how to do that, I will give you the link in the description of this video. And then we select the prompt that I want to review a hand. And it's going to give you a brief guide. And I just described the hand as I would to another poker player. So basically I said we're playing a 4-handed game, a game of 25-50 blinds. I'm on the button with a Mississippi straddle of 100. I have ace king of diamonds. Under the gun, limps for 100. Action skips me to the small blind, who limps, and the big blind checks. I raise to 900. Small blind jams for 6,000. Big blinds folds, and under the gun jams for 14,000. I called. Was this a mistake? A pretty wild hand, but pretty ordinary situation. And let's see what our coach says. Immediately comes back with a reply of describing what you just told it, so it can demonstrate that it understands the situation correctly. And if at any point it makes a mistake, there's a misunderstanding, just like you're talking to another human being, you can correct it. But in this case, it understood everything correctly, as most of the times it does. So it said, to determine if calling with ace king of diamonds, ace king suited in this scenario was a mistake, let's break down the situation step by step. Pre-flop dynamics and opponent profiles. You are on the button with a Mississippi straddle of 100. Absolutely true. Under the gun, limps for 100. Small blind also limps. Big blind checks and you raise to 900 with ace king suited. Small blind shoves all in for 6,000, and under the gun shoved all in over the top for 14,500. You were facing a decision to call for your remaining effective stack. Perfect. So it understands the situation very, very well. In fact, I was not the effective, but that's my fault because I didn't tell in my original description of the hand what my stack size was, but it assumed that. So it goes through stack size consideration and pot odds. You raise to 900. Your raise to 900 was met with a total pot size shove from small blind and a large overbet. And it does its calculation, as you can see right here, to figure out the pot. Your call to match the under the gun shove would be 13,600, which is true. Pot odds calculates that, and it comes around 28%, which is actually spot on. Final equity against your opponent's range does that calculation against a typical 4-handed opponent in this structure. Small blind's range, when limp shoving all in, could contain hands like pocket pairs, example sevens or better, ace-x hands, example ace-queen, ace-jack suited, or even weaker suited aces, and some suited connectors and bluffs. Under the guns, over the shove indicates strength. Reasonable assumption about the under the guns range may include premium pairs, jacks plus, queens plus, ace-king, ace-queen, and some strong suited broadways. Your ace-king is a strong hand and blocks aces and kings, making it less likely that both opponents could have those specific hands. However, you could still be dominated by hands like kings, queens, and jacks. And it does a beautiful equity calculation. I won't get into it. You can read it on the screen. And then it goes into some exploitative considerations. It says, in a live 4-handed cash game, opponents' behavior could deviate from strict GTO play. Players might overplay certain pairs or weak aces in shove scenarios. Exploitative factors like your read on opponents and their willingness to play aggressively pre-flop can significantly impact your decision. Conclusion, pot odds, justification. You need 28% equity to make the call profitable based on purely pot odds. Ace King suited typically achieves this against reasonable shoving ranges. Call evaluation. While there is a risk in being up against a pair, Ace King is often strong enough to call here due to your blocker effects, high equity realization, and pot odds. Edge consideration. If you have a large skill edge against these players, folding could be reasonable to preserve your stack for spots with lower variance. However, in terms of raw EV expected value, calling is generally correct. Verdict. Calling was not a mistake. From a mathematical standpoint, you had sufficient equity and pot odds to justify a call, especially with the strength of Ace King in this four-handed dynamic. However, if you had strong player-specific reads indicating extreme tightness, you could consider a disciplined fold. So, very nice understanding of the hand as it was described, great calculations for equity, and great understanding of what I should do just purely on EV, and giving me some tips on exploitative play. So I continued the conversation by saying the under the gun player is a wild maniac. I'm trying to describe the player so he can advise me further. And the small blind was relatively straightforward player who never jams with his premium, but middling pockets or suited hands. What I wanted to say was he never jams with his premiums, but does so with his middling pocket pairs and suited hands. And I think the chatbot understood this really well. Given the updated information about your opponent, it said, under the gun is a wild maniac who could be shoving with a much wider range than standard. Maniacs often include many weaker aces, example ace 9 suited plus, ace 10 off plus, Broadway hands like king queen suited, queen jack suited, even weaker holdings or smaller pocket pairs. This widens the potential range you face, improving your equity with ace king suited. Small blind is a straightforward player who does not jam with premiums, but rather jams with middling pocket pairs and suited hands. You see, it understood my message perfectly, even though I made a mistake. This means you can exclude hands like aces, kings from their range, making their shove range something like pocket pairs, sixes to queens, and suited hands like king queen suited, jack 10 suited, etc. Adjusted analysis with the new opponent profile. Now that it has some more information, it's going to adjust its analysis. Pot odds and equity revisited. The pot odds remain the same as previously calculated. You need about 28% equity to make a profitable call. With the maniac under the gun range being wide and containing a variety of hands like ace king suited, ace king suited gains significant equity. Small blind's range, as described, does not contain aces or kings, making it much less likely that you're up against a dominating hand. Range equity assessment. Against under the gun's range, example 2s plus, ace x, Broadway hands, suited connectors, and small blind's tighter but more cap range of sixes to queens, suited connectors, ace king suited performs very well. Your ace king suited should have equity comfortably exceeding 20%, likely hovering in the 40 to 50% range against these type of opponents. Exploitative call consideration. Under the gun maniac range. Since under the gun is wild and capable of overshoving with weak hands, this increases the EV expected value of your ace king suited call significantly. Small blind's cap range, knowing that the small blind does not jam with premiums and is more inclined to do so with middling pairs, suited hands, reduces your risk of being dominated. This makes ace king suited a strong candidate for a call as you're often flipping against a pair or have high equity against suited hands. Decision verdict. Calling is correct play given your read on both opponents. The wild maniac under the gun provides substantial dead money in the pot with the weaker holdings, while the small blind's cap range ensures that you're not dominated as often as you might otherwise expect in a standard scenario. Key factors. The high pot odds combined with strong equity against ranges you describe makes this clear call from an EV standpoint. Summary. Your decision to call with ace-king of diamonds against these specific opponent profiles was mathematically and strategically sound. You were well positioned against a wide volatile range from under the gun and a non-premium range from the small blind. The potential for high equity realization and the pot odds made it an EV plus decision. Now, imagine a mindset of losing a huge pot, just like I did with this hand. We were playing four-handed, ace-king. Essentially, I committed all of my stack for a flip. And immediately after losing, I'm a little shaken up by it, wondering, what did I just do? It's at the end of the session. I worked up my stack, and I just gave it away a few hands before the session ends. Now, this can be, for lack of a better word, a little traumatizing at times, especially for some of us that were in the early stages of poker, even some semi-pros or even some regular pros, depending on the size of the pot and the conditions that were going on. And it's not often that at 4 o'clock in the morning you're going to be able to talk to another person to hash out the hand and recalibrate yourself. But you can come to this chatbot and do exactly what I did, and this is exactly what happened. I got away from the table, I went out for a walk, I plugged it in, I got the feedback, and I realized that although it's a terrible loss, it's variance, and my decision was ultimately great. And that gave me the confidence to go back to the table and avoid tilt. Not only this chatbot allows you to study and perfect your game and do hand analysis of hundreds and hundreds of hands that you've played in the past, but it allows you to, in the moment, recalibrate yourself and avoid tilt if you choose to continue to play after that big hand that you just lost or got coolered on. And you can learn a lot about your plays. So I continued this conversation with the bot, giving it more detail, and I said the small blind had pocket eights and under the gun had pocket nines, and I missed the board. So this was the finale. Said unfortunate result. But let's break down what happened and whether the play was still justified despite the outcome. This is great. This is going to really break it down for me like a very knowledgeable, capable coach. Small blind had pocket eights. Under the gun had pocket nines. The board is not connected, does not connect with your ace-king of diamonds. So it tells me it understood what I said, and then it breaks it down. Against pocket nines and pocket eights, your ace-king suited has about 43% equity. It does the math for you. You don't need a solver. With under the gun and small blind both committing all their chips, there was substantial dead money in the pot, further incentivizing your call. The equity you had with ace-king suited, 43%, was much higher than the 28% equity you needed to make a profitable call based on pot odds. Mathematical validity. Your call was correct based on pot odds equity. The fact that you lost the hand does not invalidate the quality of the decision. Poker decisions should always be evaluated based on long-term expected value, not short-term results. Emotional consideration. It goes even into the emotional part of the game. The variance is a huge part of the game, and this outcome reflects a normal swing in high variance spots. You made a plus EV decision by calling with ace king suited against two opponents, especially considering one was a maniac with potentially wide range. Reflection on the opponents. Small blinds pocket eights and under the guns pocket nines were perhaps narrower than expected based on their described tendencies, but your call was still justified. The maniac under the gun may have had wider holdings in their scenarios, and the small blind shove range likely still contains many hands that ace king dominates. In conclusion, you played the hand correctly. That's great to hear. That's really good to hear. I love to hear that. Given the information and the dynamics at play, losing to pocket eights and pocket nines is simply variance, not a sign of your decision was a mistake. Over the long run, making those plus EV calls will lead to profitability, even though you won't win every time. Stay confident with your approach. You played the spot well. And then I continue the conversation with was folding that hand in that spot. Folding that hand in that spot. What am I trying to ask? I think I used voice and it didn't pick up my voice correctly. Was folding that hand in that spot a mistake, essentially, if I would have folded? It says, yes, folding that hand in that spot would have been a mistake. Here's why. It goes through its pot odds and calculations, basically reinstating everything it just said. And I put a little bit more depth to the conversation. And I said, what about the fact that we were super deep stacked? And it goes into analysis of the hand according to the deep stack consideration, and even brings a couple of referrals to tournament play, which is not really applicable here since this was cash, but it even extends its thoughts beyond the current situation. And I further go in further detail. I said this hand happened at the end of a long session. It was one of the last hands we played. I was already down quite a bit in that game, and winning that hand would have recovered all my losses for the night. But losing that hand would have made my losses double. Given that information, I don't know if calling was still correct, was the correct move, or should I have folded? Can you help me figure this out? And it goes right through all of this detailed, beautiful, fundamental, and high-level analysis. This is all for free right at my fingertips, and you can have it too. The link is below in the description. Go ahead and try it out. You can have many sorts of conversations with this bot, not just hand analysis. Anything about live poker cash games, you can have a natural, organic conversation, and it's going to give you great information because it was painstakingly developed and designed by me using hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of data points of live cash games of myself and other professional winning players, and a lot of knowledge that I've gained over the years, and have had friends and other contributors contribute to developing this ChatGPT for you to absolutely use. This is your private coach in your pocket, away from the table, hopefully not at the table, but between hands, away from the table, at home, if you're studying. At any time, you can have a poker coach in your pocket that is going to guide you in the absolute right direction. Go check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you.